I had just finished planting my mother's favorite flowers in the front yard for her birthday. I stepped inside for a moment to grab water. When I came back out, every flower had been pulled up, thrown into the street, stomped into the dirt. My neighbor was standing there, hands on his hips, smirking. "I thought this place was starting to look too happy," he said. My mother cried when she saw the ruins. I never replanted anything after that. I grew up in Brookfield, Illinois. It's the kind of town where people pretend everything is fine all the time. Middle-class homes. Clean yards. Everyone smiles too much at church and complains too much at cookouts. My mom's house was a little smaller than the others on our block, but she kept it beautiful. Not with fancy furniture or expensive upgrades. She did it with love. Especially the front yard. That garden was her pride. My mom, Eleanor, loved flowers more than anything. After my dad walked out on us when I was 11, she'd spend her Sundays in the dirt, planting. She said flowers gave her something to care for that wouldn't leave. I used to sit on the porch and watch her work. She'd hum little songs, get dirt on her face, smile like it was the best place in the world. As I got older, I moved away. Went to college. Got a job in Madison. Didn't visit enough. You know how it goes. Then in 2014, I got laid off. Things in Madison didn't work out. I came back home, told Mom it was temporary. She didn't ask questions. Just hugged me and set the table for two again. She was older, slower, but still the same woman. And she still loved that yard. Then there was Barry Keene. The guy who lived next door. Balding, smug, always wore these pressed khakis like he thought he was better than everyone. He moved in 2 years before I came back. Right away, my mom said he was particular. Meaning, he was a bitter prick. He complained about everything. Said our wind chimes were too loud. Said the garbage bins were too close to the curb. Once he even mowed a strip of our yard just to prove a point, then told Mom her grass was too long. She didn't fight with him. She wasn't like that. She'd just nod and go back inside. But I saw it in her face. He got to her. I kept telling myself to ignore him. That he was just a lonely man with nothing better to do. I tried. Until May 8th. Her birthday. I got up early that morning. She was still asleep. I drove to the garden center and bought 2 trays of zinnias, her favorite flower. Bright, full blooms in red, orange, pink, and yellow. I remember thinking how cheerful they looked. How perfect. She used to call zinnias the fighters. Because no matter how hot it got, they'd keep blooming. It took me about 3 hours. I planted them in a clean row across the front, right under the window where she always sat with her tea. I was sweaty, sore, but happy. I knew she'd love it. Around 10, I went inside to get some water. I figured I'd grab her a cup of coffee, too. Maybe bring her out to see the flowers and surprise her. When I stepped back outside, my heart dropped. Every single flower was gone. Not just pulled up. Torn out. Thrown into the street. The soil was ripped open, scattered across the sidewalk. Some of the flowers were crushed, petals torn, stems snapped. It looked like someone had stomped on them, then kicked them into the gutter. And there he was. Barry. Standing on the edge of his driveway, arms crossed, watching me. "I thought this place was starting to look too happy," he said, smirking like he just told a clever joke. I froze. My hands clenched. My stomach turned. But I didn't say a word. I just looked at him, and he turned around and walked back to his front door like he hadn't just destroyed something sacred. I cleaned up the mess before Mom woke up. Tried to hide it. But she noticed. Of course she did. She saw the empty patch of dirt, and her face fell. "What happened?" she asked. I lied. Said some kids must have done it. But I think she knew. She just nodded, sat down on the porch, and stared at the soil like she was staring at a grave. She didn't say anything else that day. Didn't even eat the cake I bought. After that, she stopped going out to the garden. And I never replanted a thing. But I didn't forget. Not for a second. Barry thought he'd won. But I was just getting started. After that day, things changed. Not right away. I didn't go straight to revenge like in some movie. I just went quiet. I started watching Barry. Not in a creepy way. Just noticing. His routines. His habits. He left the house every Thursday around 10 a.m., came back by noon. Always alone. Groceries, maybe. He didn't talk to anyone. Didn't seem to have friends or family. Just him and his stupid, spotless yard. I started digging around. Turns out Barry had lived in a couple other neighborhoods before ours. I tracked one down, talked to a woman who lived next to him in Bolingbrook. "Oh, that guy," she said. "He's a nightmare. Called the cops on my son for playing basketball at 4 p.m. Called animal control on my cat. We threw a block party when he moved out. Same pattern. Wherever he went, he made people miserable. And somehow, he always slithered away untouched. No one ever did anything. Just let him keep ruining lives." That made it worse. So I started small. Quiet. The first thing I did was kill his grass. Not all of it. Just one perfect square in the middle of his front lawn. I poured a mix of bleach and hot water under cover of dark, waited a few days. When the grass turned yellow, he nearly lost his mind. I watched from our living room as he stood there staring at the dead patch, pacing in circles like it was a murder scene. Then I heard him curse and storm back inside. I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. I just felt steady. Next, I loosened a few screws on his fence. Not enough to break anything, just enough to make it rattle in the wind. I knew it would drive him nuts. And it did. Every time a breeze came through, he'd rush outside like a man possessed, trying to figure out what was wrong. Then I waited a few weeks. Made it seem like it all stopped. Then I hit him again. One night, I snuck over and dropped a dozen wildflower seed bombs all over his lawn. The kind that explode into patches of color after a good rain. A week later, his perfect green carpet was dotted with little purple and yellow blooms. He tore them out one by one. That was the first time I saw him break. He stood out there in his bathrobe, under the morning sun, screaming into the empty street. But none of that was enough. Not really. Because I knew what would hurt him the most. Control. That's what Barry lived for. Control of his space. His image. His rules. So I started taking that from him. First, I filed a few quiet complaints with the city. Told them about the smell of his garbage, the unlicensed pesticide he used, the extension cord that ran from his garage to the shed. Then I got his license plate and looked it up online. Turns out Barry had a small landscaping business registered under his name. It wasn't much. Just him and a rusted-out pickup truck. But it was legit. His only source of income. And from what I found in the records, he had a handful of clients around town. Elderly folks who didn't want to mow their own lawns. People who trusted him. I started making calls. Nothing dramatic. Just quiet questions. "Did you know he uses chemicals that are banned?" I heard he yelled at a neighbor's kid for walking too close to his truck. I wouldn't trust him around my mom. I let those seeds grow. Within a month, 3 of his clients dropped him. Then 2 more. I know because I saw them out in their yards again, mowing for the first time in years. One of them even told me they'd had a bad feeling about Barry for a while. My call just confirmed it. He tried to stay calm. I could tell. But he wasn't good at hiding his stress. He stopped mowing his own lawn. Let the hedges go wild. He looked tired, hunched. That's when I made my move. I had a friend named Joel. He worked in pest control. Good guy. Owed me a favor. I asked him to drop off a few empty traps in Barry's front yard while no one was looking. Just the boxes. Nothing dangerous. Just enough to make it look like something bad was going on. 2 days later, I called the neighborhood board. Said I saw rats running from Barry's yard. They opened an inspection the next week. Health department got involved. Barry lost it. I watched him yelling at the inspector on his porch while the guy just nodded and wrote things down. I heard he got fined. A couple $100. Not the end of the world. But for Barry? It was everything. And I still wasn't done. After the inspection, Barry started falling apart. His lawn, once perfect, turned patchy and dry. The shutters on his windows were peeling. Trash sat too long in his bins. The man who used to measure his grass with a ruler now barely came outside. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because while he was unraveling, I found something. Something big. It started when I noticed an envelope sticking out of his mailbox. It had a return address from a law office. Normally, I wouldn't care. But Barry was out that morning. So I walked over and took a closer look. No one was around. I didn't touch it. Just looked. It said Foster and Pike, Estate Services. That stuck in my head. Later that night, I looked them up. Turns out they were handling a probate case. The kind of thing you call a lawyer for when someone dies and leaves behind money or property. That made me curious. Really curious. I started checking public records, the court website, whatever I could get into. After a few hours, I found it, Barry's name, listed as a beneficiary in a will. Some old woman named Margaret Keene. His mother. She had passed away 3 months earlier. Left behind a property in Danville. A rundown rental home, but still something. But here's the twist. There was a clause in the will. If Barry got in any legal trouble or violated any local ordinances before the transfer was complete, the property would go to the secondary heir, a charity for disabled veterans. It was all right there in the court filings. His mom didn't trust him fully. She built in a trapdoor. One mistake, and the house would be gone. And guess what? Those fines I helped trigger? They counted. I couldn't believe it. I just sat there, rereading the document over and over. Barry had destroyed my mom's birthday flowers like it meant nothing. Now his own petty cruelty was coming back for him in the worst way. But it still needed one final push. So I made one more call. This time to the probate office. I asked a few innocent-sounding questions, pretending to be a concerned neighbor. I dropped just enough details to raise suspicion, violations, neighbor complaints, the health inspection. 2 weeks later, a formal report was submitted. Barry's inheritance was flagged. The transfer was put on hold. And a month after that, I watched him stand outside, screaming into his phone, then throw it across his porch. It bounced off the railing and cracked. He knew. He knew he'd lost the property. He didn't know why, but he knew something had gone wrong. He tried to fix it, but it was too late. And I still wasn't finished. Once I saw Barry lose the inheritance, I thought I'd feel better. I didn't. Not right away. I kept replaying that day in my head. His smirk, those flowers torn up, my mom's quiet tears on her birthday. Even after everything I'd done, it didn't feel like enough. But then something happened that finally made it feel real. My mom smiled again. It was small. She was sitting on the porch one evening with her tea, staring out at Barry's wrecked lawn, his sagging fence, the way his garbage cans had been left overturned. He came outside, looked at the mess, and muttered something under his breath before slamming his door. She chuckled. Just once. But that one laugh meant everything. That's when I knew I could stop. I let things be after that. I didn't mess with him anymore. Didn't need to. Barry was a ghost of who he used to be. Most of the neighbors avoided him. His landscaping business was gone. The city fined him again for a busted shed. And he didn't fight back this time. He just faded. Then, 6 months later, he moved out. Didn't even say goodbye. Just packed up a U-Haul and vanished. No one missed him. I found out later that he tried to fight the will's clause, tried to appeal it. But the damage was done. The house went to the charity. His mother's last gift, taken away because he couldn't stop being cruel. I told my mom the truth eventually. Not all of it, but enough. She looked at me long and hard. Then she reached out and held my hand. You didn't have to, she said. I know, I said. But I wanted to. We never talked about it again. Years later, after she passed, I planted zinnias in that front yard again. First time in a long time. They bloomed just like before. Bright. Stubborn. Full of life. I still live in that house. Sometimes, when I sit on the porch and sip my coffee, I look at those flowers and think about Barry. About what hate cost him. About what love made me do. I don't regret it. But I know this, revenge doesn't fix everything. It just makes sure they never forget.